Thank you. Thanks, first of all, to House of SpeakEasy, and thank you, Amanda, for that introduction, and to Lucas Whitman, and to the remarkable Erin Cox, who you may know. Yeah, she's great. And thanks to all of you for staying this long. Appreciate it. I'm here, as Amanda indicated, to speak with you a bit about fasting. And while at first glance that may seem incompatible with the delicious burgers and the wonderful martinis that I know Joe's Pub serves up, I hope at the end of these 10 minutes or so you'll come to agree with me that fasting in all its forms can provide a way to reassess our own ourselves, our connection to each other, and even perhaps our position in the universe. I realize this is a pretty tall order, but hear me out. So humans proceed, for the most part, on fullness, right? From the moment we're born, we want a full belly, and then our parents compound that by either helping us set goals or setting goals for us. All along the way, we want a full bank account. We consume. We're always in movement. We're exercising. We have to stuff our heads with knowledge. Even when we think we're sitting still, we're always in a state of transformation. But in fact, most of what our busyness, I guess, is something that neuropsychologists like to call pattern behavior or automaticity. We don't think about most of, really probably, I don't know the percentage, I could make it up for you, 99.99% of what we do without thinking. So that includes everything from the feel of a cotton shirt on your skin, to reading, to getting up in the morning and putting on your shoes and so on, making your coffee. It involves speaking, listening, and all of that is fought by fasting, because fasting takes us off this treadmill of normalcy, even if it's only for a short period of time, and then we get back onto it. At the same time that we're obsessed with fullness, we tend to, for the most part, fear the void, right? We avoid the void. It's associated with death and deprivation. This is really quite a depressing talk for Joe's Pub, but it doesn't have to be. It's just the state of things. But but the absence has a real power to it. And like most of you, when I started thinking about fasting, I associated it with food. You don't eat, you starve. And that led me to thinking about fasting in other forms and its power and the power of absence. And that recognition of the power of absence has been with us a long time. And obviously ancient philosophies, modern religions, Islam has Ramadan, Christianity has Lent. There are fasting days in Judaism and Hinduism, and Buddhism, of course, is basically founded around the whole concept of withdrawal and pulling back. Buddha fasted when he rejected aristocracy. He fasted for 49 days, thereby proving, incidentally, he could outfast Jesus and Moses before him. But then he even fasted from fasting and took the middle way. But still, the idea of withdrawal is essential to Buddhism. And then more recently, of course, the concept of fasting has been present, and it's all around us in hunger strikes and the boycotts that are going on. It's a powerful aspect of that I feel is endemic to humanity. And in the last century, in the middle of the last century, the mystic, the philosopher and faster and activist Simone Weil made the case that it was by only pulling back that we can truly, that creativity really starts only from withdrawal. And then people like John Cage talk about how it's only in conscious silence that we can really discover our connection to things. So along those lines, following Cage, and I guess we started the evening with Minneapolis, and we're going to end it with Minneapolis. I reserved 2 hours in something called an anechoic chamber in Minneapolis. And an anechoic chamber is a specially constructed room that has a negative decibel level. In the case of this particular chamber, it has a negative decibel level of 13. And just to put that in context, normal human hearing starts at about 0 decibels. And the sound of breathing, of course, it depends how heavily you breathe, is about 10 decibels. And the sound of the rustle of leaves is 20 decibels, and so on. This place has negative 13. It's since been declared the quietest place on the planet. And I reserved 2 hours there because I was told that was the most anyone had spent in the room alone. And because at the time I was researching fasting, I wanted to experience it in its fullness, this sort of sensory deprivation, which is a form of fasting. But I didn't want to try and break the record because that seemed against the spirit of what I was trying to do. So this anechoic chamber is a building within a building. The walls are 3 feet thick. It's about 12 feet square on a side. It's covered in these foam core pyramids, kind of like Joe's Pub, except more so. The floor is plywood suspended on airline cables so that when you walk on it, it bounces gently. And they prepared it for me. Normally it's used for testing industrial appliances and for making sure your dishwasher has that special sound that indicates efficiency but not, overwork. It's really true. That's what they use it for. So I go into this room, this strange room, unlike any place I've ever seen before. There's a single metal chair in the middle, a light bulb hanging down like something out of the Saw movies. And I settle myself in the chair, and the technician, as he starts to swing shut this massive 3-foot thick door, says, "See you in 2 hours," and then he flicks out the lights. So I hadn't considered they were going to turn out the lights. So the instant he did that, I was thinking, okay, the chair's here and the door's there, and when the moment of panic comes, which I was sure it would because I'm a kind of panic-prone person, I could sort of stumble from the chair to the door. As it turned out, that wasn't necessary. But when he shut the door, when he flicked out the lights and then shut the door, I felt silence and darkness descend on me like a blanket. It was really an amazing experience. The blackness was so complete that I couldn't see my hand an inch in front of my face. I couldn't tell the difference between eyes open and eyes closed. And the silence really weighed on me. I felt this pressure that I don't know how else to describe it other than as somebody had come behind me and put a blanket around my shoulders. Of course, this was an illusion because we experienced sound pressure as loudness. And in this room, there was none other than what I was bringing to the story. It was an amazing experience. And after a little while, sitting there alone in the dark like a madman, I grimaced. And I could hear my skin crinkle. And I may have some wrinkles, but it's not that bad. And I opened and closed my eyes. I could hear my eyelids opening and closing. And then I rolled my eyes in their sockets. That I could not hear. And that led me to the realization that there are sensations that we miss and we will always miss as long as we're alive. There's some stuff you just can't grasp and that will pass you by. I kicked off my shoes. They thudded to the ground a few feet away from me, and they sounded like they had dropped 1,000 feet. I muttered a few words, again, sitting there alone in the dark, and they fell like lead weights at my feet. It was very strange. I got off the chair and lay down on the floor, and I waved my arms in the dark and felt like, I imagined I was swimming in the sea of darkness, as though I were in an ocean above an abyss. I couldn't tell which way was up and which way was down. It was a very trippy experience. So by then I figured maybe 10, 15 minutes had passed, and I was lying on the ground with my shoes off when the door opened, and there were two technicians standing in the doorway, and the shaft of light came in, and they said the 2 hours had gone by. And I got to my feet, and I prepared to inject myself into what I thought would be this maelstrom of sensations. And instead, I felt a serenity and a calmness that I have never before felt. And I was told that that's the way most people feel when they come out of an anechoic chamber. And by the way, John Cage had spent some time in one as well. You're probably, if you're observant, you may have noticed that I'm waving around a rock. And I keep this rock on my desk because it's both an invitation and a reminder. It's, to me, a reminder of a wonderful passage in a remarkable book by a theoretical physicist called Carlo Rovelli, The Order of Time. And if you don't know that book, I strongly urge you to pick it up, because it's totally digestible even to a complete non-math person such as myself, and it's just so beautifully written. And in the book, at some point, Rovelli talks about a rock as an extended event. And I love this image because not only does it remind me of our own existence as brief biological flashes, but also of the possibility of other timelines, and how our lives are really at opposite, if not at opposition, are in contrast to much of the rest of the universe. Without leaving room for emptiness, we never grow. Focus and consequently perception require absence. When we reject automaticity, we go from pattern behavior to vigilance. And then sometimes, even if it's for a very short time, we are better able to process how we perceive things. And fasting can be a road to doing that. Thank you very much.